Hi, I'm Jeff Marsacci, estate planning attorney in Raleigh with offices in Asheville and author of The Anti-Probate Revolution and other books. Uh, I often have clients who come to me and they seem very confused because I've been to another attorney and they just said my head was spinning. It was just so much and it was just too much. It was too complicated for them to deal with. And it turns out that the attorney was just making it a lot more complicated than it really needed to be. Is estate planning a complex thing? Well, it can be. There's a lot of different factors, but the complex stuff, that's for the attorney to handle. That's not really on you as the client to have to handle all of the complicated stuff. And I say, look, estate planning really is easy on your part. It should be. There are only 4 big questions you need to answer. And if you've got that, then you're most of the way there. For a lot of my clients, that's all of the way there. And everything else is for me to talk about. Now, there may be details off those 4 things, but again, that's my issue to take care of. First big question is always, who do you trust with finances? Who's going to handle your checkbook if you get sick? Who's going to pay your bills? Who's going to move money around? Who's going to take care of things financially? And if you pass on, who's going to make sure that the money goes where you want it to go? Now, you should always have one person. If they can't do it, there's a backup. If they can't do it, there's a third. So really, we're looking for a list of 3 names. And if you can't get to the 3 names, well, all right, there's always the possibility of having a corporate trustee if you can't find anyone you trust. Now, what are these types of people? What are you looking for? First of all, it's a person you trust, whose judgment you trust. They should have some financial ability and know-how, but they don't have to be a financial advisor or an accountant or anything like that. In fact, it's most important that what they are good at is spending money wisely the right way. Now, most people have at least a few people like that in their lives, and they can name them and list them down. So if you've got that, that's the first question. You're already 25% of the way there. Second big question, who do you trust to make healthcare decisions for you? If you can't communicate, if you're in a coma, who do you want talking with the doctors, deciding on courses of treatment, and signing off on everything from generic to brand name medication? Now, most people jump and say, oh, they have to do the pull the plug, No, there's a separate document for that called a living will. We're talking about everything else. If you're incapacitated, you're in the hospital, who's handling your medical stuff for you? Who's making those judgment calls? Again, it should be a person you trust, whose judgment you trust. They should be on the same wavelength as you in terms of what you would want done medically. And most importantly, they should be medically curious, even if they're not medically knowledgeable. And by that I mean they should want to look into your situation, ask questions. Don't just say, oh, well, that's what the doctor said, so I guess that's right. No, you want someone who's really going to be an advocate for you and who's going to ask the right questions. And if necessary, they should be able to fire a doctor too. So you get that list, one person. If they can't do it, there's a backup. If they can't do it, there's a third. Now, I want to just branch off for a quick second and talk about some of my clients say, oh, well, I've got 3 kids. Let's make them all equally involved in this decision. Bad idea. I can tell you, it's tough getting 3 kids to agree to what to have on a pizza, let alone something this critical. Name one person at a time to handle those positions, and if they can't do it, then you've got a backup. Now, this does mean that you have to make some selective choices, but hey, this isn't about who you love more. It's who's got more experience or who's more knowledgeable or who's better suited to either handling finances or healthcare. All right. You got that question now? That you're halfway there. In fact, you're probably more than halfway there, but at least you're halfway there. Third question. This is what most people think about when they think about estate planning. It's who gets what and when after I'm gone. Maybe even a little bit of how do they get it. But what we're talking about is how does your estate get split up once you're gone? And I generally say, look in terms of percentages. Maybe you've got some sentimental items or heirlooms or things that you want to go to certain people, but by and large, a lot of my clients look at percentages. And it could be as simple as the three kids, they get everything equally. Okay, now this is the part that my clients hate, but it's necessary. I start killing off their relatives in these little scenarios to see which way the money flows, just to make sure we're building in some layers of contingencies. And so there's the very uncomfortable question: what happens if one of your kids dies before you do, and they happen to have kids? Do you want their share to drop down to their kids? And most of the time the answer is yes. Well, then we kind of approach, well, all right, you don't necessarily want them to get an inheritance at 18. Let's build in age restrictions. And most of my clients look at somewhere between 30 and 40 or 45 as a suitable age to just turn the inheritance over to them. Doesn't mean they can't get money if they need it. But remember those financial people we talked about? Those are your trustees. They would be in charge of the money for any underage beneficiaries until they reach the age you thought was appropriate. All right, so let's just say we get through that. We have a couple of layers of contingencies. Where does the money flow? That's 3 out of 4 questions. You're 75% of the way there. Now, the last question, a lot of my clients don't even have to get to. It's who would raise your kids if you weren't able to? And a lot of my clients, oh, well, my kids are all grown. They're all over 18. Well, then we don't even have to deal with that. But if you do, this is a question that's completely separate from who's handling the money, who's handling your medical decisions. This is simply, who do you want to raise your kids? I often see a big conflict when clients come in the first time. They're worrying about who's going to raise their kids, but they're horrible with money, and oh, we can't find anybody, because they're looking for Superman. They're looking for someone who can do it all. Well, you don't have to do it all. And they certainly can't do it as well as you can. So it's perfectly fine, and in fact, it's very common that you have the financial people can be a completely different list from the guardians that you're nominating. And so the only thing you really have to be concerned with in those two lists are, can those people work together? So one person can handle the money and the investments and make sure that the guardian has enough money to raise the kids. And the guardian, they have to concentrate on instilling the right values in the children that you want them to. So that's really it. Those are the 4 big questions. If you've got the answers to that, you're most of the way there. And you really don't have to get into all of the complexities that the attorney should be handling. So again, let's just recap. Who's handling financial stuff for you? Who's handling healthcare decisions for you if you can't? Third question, who gets what, when, and how? Fourth question, who would be guardians for any minor children you have? And that's really it. 4 big questions. Let's keep it simple. So, again, I'm Jeff Marsacci, an estate planning attorney in Raleigh and with offices in Asheville. And if you need anything, just give us a call.